What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. And in today's video, I wanted to jump into the charts and do a little bit of a Bitcoin deep dive with you guys and talk about what I'm going to be expecting moving into the year of 2025. Are we going to see this bull market continue up and to the right like we have in the previous cycles? And if we do, how high can we go? I want to talk about my 2025 predictions for the top of this Bitcoin cycle. Are we on our way to $200,000 plus? I want to talk about those major targets that I'm looking at to the upside, because right now Bitcoin is actually sitting at our first target that we looked at in a Bitcoin deep dive that we did way before the bull market started. I'm going to talk to you guys about how we predicted that move and then use those exact same strategies to predict our next all-time high and where the top of this cycle might come in at. So buckle up, guys. This is going to be a saucy one, and without further ado, let's go ahead and jump on into the charts. Let's get into it. So guys, here we are on the Bitcoin chart. Now this is my cycle chart, which is a chart that I've shown many times on this channel. Simply all I did here was mark out the halvings and the bottoms, as well as some really interesting information based off of the timing of the cycles. But right now I am just showing the bottom and the halvings marked out here. Now this is the chart I'm going to be using to kind of like put into perspective where we are in this cycle and whether I'm expecting new all-time highs or not. And I'm just going to answer this question right now. Based off the 4-year cycle, guys, it would look like we do have much more upside here on Bitcoin moving into 2025, and it is likely that we will put in another massive all-time high, and I'm going to talk about those exact levels I would be expecting price to top out at for the end of this bull market. Now real quick, guys, before we jump into this, I do want to talk about how we were able to predict this move from about $30,000 all the way up here to about $70,000, and this all had to do with Fibonacci retracements. Now we were also using volume profiles as a key tool to predict when this move would actually happen. We were looking at this major volume profile from the top of the bull market, and as we were tapping our head on this key level right here, which was the value area low of that macro range, sitting at around $30,000, we knew that as Bitcoin was testing this level, it would be very likely that if we were able to break above this value area low, this was going to be the doorway to higher prices and would likely lead to a fast move into the POC, which was sitting here at about $34,000, and we knew once we got above that level, we would very likely continue our journey into that value area high, which was sitting at about $50,000. Now, these key volume profile levels were also confluent with our Fibonacci retracement when pulled from the all-time high all the way to the bottom of the 2022 bear market, and this was another big reason we were looking at this as a major target. We had the value area high, which we know once the value area low is broken is going to be a high probability area for price to come into, and once we were able to get above that 786 and hold support, we were anticipating another big explosive move to the upside, which we had our next major key targets at in that last Bitcoin deep dive that we did. And I used two major tools to predict where that next major target would be, and that was by using the Fibonacci retracements as well as spider lines, which are essentially just diagonal levels of support and resistance, which just tend to be extremely reliable. And shout out to CryptoFace. I'm pretty sure he invented the spider lines, and this was a huge way we were able to predict that we would get our next target to come in here where we are sitting right now. Now, if I pull up those Fibonacci extensions, you guys can see that our target number one for the new major all-time high on Bitcoin was sitting right here on this Fibonacci extension zone, which was coming in between about $91,000 and $102,000. And you guys can see as soon as we came into true price discovery, not this fake out all-time high that we made right here, but once we finally got that true breakout here, this was our first major target that we have been looking for ever since Bitcoin was down here at $30,000. And what happens? We get that journey through the volume profile, we get above that 786, and we get the breakout. And where are we sitting right now? We are literally right inside that first target number one zone. I know a lot of people are worried about things like the bearish divergence on the weekly or the monthly red dot incoming on Market Cipher B, but just to explain a little bit of why I'm not necessarily too worried about that, it really comes down to the timing of the cycles. If we were to have the top come in here at $108,000, which I am not a believer in, but if we were to see that happen, we would have to see something happen in this cycle that we have not seen in any other cycle. We've never seen a top come in on the actual year of the halving. Typically, the top does come in the year after the halving, and this would also be the fastest we've ever put in an all-time high on Bitcoin. I know there is some FUD going around that $108,000 was the top. Now, I will be the first person to tell you that this is not impossible. Markets change over time, and we could potentially see something different play out here in this cycle. But like I always say, the people who say this time is different come around every single cycle, and almost every single time they get absolutely wrecked. Now, can the cycle change over time? Absolutely. Am I open to that idea 100%. But until we wind up seeing something severe break within this 4-year cycle, I am going to kind of use this to predict when we could potentially see a new all-time high, and more importantly, what that price level would actually be. So just to take a look at this, guys, if we come in the past, we know that the all-time highs typically come in between 335 days and some change and 525 days and some change. If we come all the way back here to 2012, you can see we had that halving come in 2012, and then about 364 days after the halving, the true all-time high came in, and that all-time high did come in the year after the halving. If we come into the halving of 2016, you can see the halving came in, and then we wound up putting in that all-time about 525 days after the halving, and that all-time high, once again, came in the year after the halving. And if we come over to 2021, this is a little bit of an interesting one, as we did have somewhat of a double top here. Now, you guys know I am a believer that this really was the top on Bitcoin back in 2021 at about $64,700, and there are many reasons for that. This was really the peak in all the excitement. This is where search term analytics for Bitcoin were absolutely skyrocketing, and then on this second rip to the upside, none of those metrics wound up making new all-time highs. So in my opinion, this was the true top, and then this was some kind of inflated dead cat bounce, or as a trader, what we like to call this is a liquidity sweep before bringing price back down into a bear market. So in this case, we had the first top come in, coincidentally, 336 days after the halving, which is very similar to back here in 2012, 364 days and 336 days. Very, very close. And then that second top coincidentally comes in about 546 days after the halving, which is also very, very close to 525 days. So what can we take away from that? Well, we could say that the halvings typically come in between 330 and 550 days after the halving, and the all-time highs have always come in the year after the halving. So if you're a believer in the 4-year cycle, you would have to be banking on something completely different happening here, where we put the all-time high in the year of the halving. And you can also see here that this all-time high did come in about 235 days after the halving, which we have never seen before. And with those other numbers lining up so close to each other, it does seem a little bit weird for this to be the all-time high. Now, again, this doesn't guarantee that 108,000 wasn't the top, but at least at this point in the market, that is not the camp that I fall into. I do think we will continue up. I am bullish on Bitcoin, and I do think that a lot of people who are scared on this pull to the downside may be new to crypto and not used to these pullbacks that we definitely do see in bull markets from time to time. Not everything can go up in a straight line forever. So if we do go ahead and make new all-time highs for Bitcoin, and hopefully looking at this historical chart here, looking at the measurements between the tops and the halvings, you can kind of just see how similar things are and how abnormal it would be for Bitcoin to put in a top here. But I also do want to make a very important point here, guys. We can use this history to try to predict as best as we can where a top would come in 2025. But I do just also want to point out here, although I am a believer in the 4-year cycle, every Bitcoin bull run has been accompanied by looser monetary policy and a rallying stock market. So these are also conditions that need to be met. And I do think that if we were to see some kind of massive collapse on the stock market, I am in the camp that Bitcoin would likely follow this. So although I believe in the 4-year cycle, we have to understand that Bitcoin really does just track traditional finance, or at least this is what we can see from the information. So again, if we go into new all-time highs, this would obviously be assuming that the stock market is rallying and things are looking good from a macroeconomic standpoint. And we do have that loose monetary policy giving us the environment that we've had in every other bull run to see Bitcoin go into massive new all-time highs. Now, just to show you guys that this is actually the case, I know a lot of people fight over the 4-year cycle. Does Bitcoin move just off the 4-year cycle? Does it track traditional finance? I have overlaid the SPY over Bitcoin here, and you guys can see if you just zoom out and compare these charts in 2016 and 2017, as Bitcoin was getting its absolute massive rip to the upside, the S&P was also ripping to the upside, and Bitcoin was simply just following suit. And you can see the bear market of 2018, we had a big crash in the S&P, and then even moving forward into 2020, you could see Bitcoin started to rally as the S&P was getting a recovery. Then we had that black swan event, both assets absolutely dumped, and then eventually we wound up getting that 2021 bull run to come in, with Bitcoin peaking out slightly before the stock market, and then you can see both assets are dumping to the downside. And here we are in a very, very, very similar situation where you had the bear market come in, the S&P was also in a massive downtrend. We kind of accumulated down here, and then we got the massive rip to the upside, and Bitcoin is obviously still following the S&P here. So there is definitely a correlation here. This is not just my emotional opinion. This is actually what we've seen happen in the past. So assuming all those conditions are going to be here, I know the Fed has walked back its claims of lowering interest rates very aggressively in 2025, but in my opinion, I don't think it's that cut and dry. There are many things that could change that, and sometimes the Fed does like to hedge its bets. They don't want to make promises that they can't keep. So this is all things you have to take into account. Nobody can predict predict 100% what is going to happen, but by just going off historical information and understanding that the Fed can potentially continue to cut rates even though they walked it back a little bit, let's assume we're going to see that 2025 all-time high come in, because that's my personal opinion, not financial advice. I can already hear the Mafia watching this video. Frankie, just give us the targets. Give me the upper targets. Tell me when the top is coming in. How high are we going in 2025? So let's go ahead and jump into that right now. In my own personal opinion, based off of everything we just went over, and assuming all those bull run conditions are met, I will be anticipating new all-time highs in 2025. And first off, before we make those new all-time highs, guys, we got to break above resistance. Like I said, I'm not just going to give you the targets. I'm going to give you the key levels we have to get above in order to even see these targets come in. So really right now, as Bitcoin kind of bing-bongs around here, we're going to need to break out and come approach this pocket of spider lines that we have above. Now, these levels do trend up over time, so depending on how quickly we get up here, these prices will change. But for right now, if we were to, say, reach these levels at some point this month, they will be coming in between about $110 and I would say about $112,000. Now, we also do have some local Fibonacci extension levels. One of them is sitting here at about $112,000. We also have another one at 114. So again, it is going to really depend on how quickly we get up there. But I would say once we're able to get above these levels, start flipping this spider line between about 112 and 114K. This is where we do not really have too much above us to get to our second target, sitting at about $137,000. Now, I'm not saying we have to Lambo candle up here in one day. There's obviously going to be some local resistance as price comes up. We can look at other levels for low time frame noise, but for the most part, the next major target is going to be sitting here at $137,218. Now, not only am I going to look at this as a major target for Bitcoin, but I'm also going to anticipate a decent bit of turbulence here, because remember how well our major targets that we're sitting in right now are playing out, right? We're getting these reactions within these levels, and remember, we were looking at these all the way down when Bitcoin was at about $20,000, and we came up into these and we did get some turbulence. So I will be looking at this as a key level of resistance, not just a major target. And again, there is not much sitting above us. You can see we do have a major space in our spider lines here. This first major spider line pocket played out perfectly, and you can see once we broke this spider line here at about 75K, what happens? We get a pretty aggressive move up, and then we grinded our way into that next spider line pocket. And you can see here, we do have some spider lines up here if you guys can see them, but there is a huge gap here between these two spider line pockets. And the last time we went through a huge gap like that, we did wind up getting a massive move up on Bitcoin. So if we can get above these spider lines, again, depending on when we hit them, the prices will change. But I do have tutorials to show you guys how to get these on your chart. Go check them out. I'll try to link a card here at the top of the video. You could go ahead, open it in a new tab, and when you're finished with this video, go watch that to get these on your chart. But once we get that move up, there's not much holding us back to get that bigger move into about 137,000. And I know everyone, 137,000, Frankie, that's a little bit conservative, don't you think? We have all these bullish catalysts, US Bitcoin Reserve, all this crazy stuff. Institutions have entered, and I will say this is going to be a major target for me, guys, but we got some more to go. And I do think that if we are able to get above that $137,000 level, guys, I am going to be looking up where we have our next major area of confluence, and that is going to be sitting up here where we have major resistance sitting at another Fibonacci extension at about $155,526. So let's say we wind up working our way up here, flipping the spider lines to support. We get that big move up into our major target at 137K, and then maybe we get some turbulence, we bing bong around. But once we're able to get above this, guys, I will be looking for that $155,000 zone, which is another Fibonacci extension target. And we also, again, depending on how quickly we get up here, these levels will start to change, right? If we got up here from where we're at right now, the spider line started about 157K. If we take a little bit longer, you can see those spider lines are a little bit more in confluence with the top of this box, which is why I have that box pulled up to here. So if we get above 137, we could potentially look for Bitcoin to creep its way into about $155,526, simply targeting that Fibonacci extension level. And if we do something like we did back here, where we get above that extension level and we start to creep up, we may run into that next pocket of spider lines, which would simply look very similar to what we are seeing right now on our current price action. It actually is an eerily similar situation, and that is what I'm going to be expecting. Now, again, how we get here is going to be a whole nother story. We have to assess the situation as price action develops, but I can already hear you guys. Come on, Frankie, give us that $200,000 Bitcoin. Is it possible? Is everybody just giving us bullish hopium? And my answer to that, guys, is there are some key levels at about $200,000, but I will say this level up here between 155 and about 175,000 is going to be a big level of resistance. I hope we can break through it. I'm praying for it. I'm as much of a Bitcoin bull as everybody else out there, but we have to understand from a technical standpoint, this is going to be major resistance. But if we see some really bullish catalysts come out and we're able to squeeze up even higher, I will say if we can get above these spider lines, again, a move move to 137 is very likely. I will reassess the situation at this point. Once we get above that, this is going to be the next big zone between 176,000 and 155,000. And then once we creep up there, guys, we do have that sweet $208,924 price target. If we could creep up on these spider lines and get through them, we may be able to get into that next Fibonacci extension level. However, I like to be a little bit more conservative. When you're in crypto, guys, the goal is to make money, not hold onto your bags until it dumps. And my general thought is between about 137 to 175,000. I'm going to keep that sweet spot as our key zones of resistance. Although we do have that Fibonacci extension at $208,000, this does not guarantee that Bitcoin will make it up here. Please understand these spider lines are probably going to give us some kind of resistance. Even if we peak above this box here, we could just keep getting hammered down by this spider line. And again, depending on what the situation is up here, what the world looks like, what the economy looks like, all that good stuff, it is going to be a reassess the situation type thing. So for me personally, I am keeping my targets a little bit more conservative because my goal, guys, is not to sell the tippy top. My average entry price for Bitcoin is between $21,000 and $22,000. I am going to be laddering out on the way up, looking at these targets to potentially take small percentages off the table. But for my general prediction here, guys, and what I am going to be going off of, at least as of right now, is going to be looking for Bitcoin to hit that $137,000 to $155,000 price target. And then if we could creep up, I am going to max that out at about $176,000. I will be selling, if we can make it up here, I will be selling a lot of my Bitcoin. If we could creep up a little bit higher, I am fine missing out on a few extra gains in order to guarantee my profit. It's only about 18% from the top of this box to the bottom of the next Fibonacci extension zone. I'm totally fine missing out on a 17% gain when I have already been enjoying this entire rip to the upside from, let's say, $22,000 all the way up there. I'm already up about 822% overall on my bag, maybe a little bit less, but I am not worried about that extra 18%. So like I said, I will be laddering out if we do get into these next targets, 137K. I will take a little bit of profit. At $150,000, I will aggressively take profits, in which case I'm probably rolling into some altcoins, so the gains won't necessarily be completely over there, but this is what I'm looking at on Bitcoin, guys. And the price targets I will be expecting, keeping it a little bit on the more conservative side. I really do think even between about $145,000 to $155,000 will be a really, really good price target for me to start really laddering out of the market heavily. And if it keeps going up without me, guys, I will be happy to watch those 18% gains run off without me because I will already be locking in massive profits from about $22,000. And remember, guys, it is so hard to time the tippy tops here. You do not want to hold your bag trying to hold on for that dollar top. Very few people are able to do that. And even if I were able to do that, there would absolutely be some form of luck involved there. There's nothing saying that we're guaranteed to go to $208,000. You'll hear a lot of people saying, oh my God, this time is different. We're going to 250. We're going to 210. And while they do have a chance of being right, guys, these this time are different people is what I like to call them, come around in every single cycle. This is my third crypto cycle. These people come around every single time, and every time they wind up getting wrecked. So do not fall victim to this. And if we do get up to some of these upper price targets, guys, and things look mega bullish and it looks like we could rip up to 250, 300, whatever that price target is, I will be the first person to update you guys on the charts here and give you real information that would make it probable that we will get up to those price targets. But for right now, let's sit back and see what Bitcoin has in store for 2025. And remember, just because we're doing a price prediction video right now does not guarantee that the bottom is in here for Bitcoin. I will be honest, it is looking somewhat good here as we're holding the anchor VWAP. But if we got a bigger pullback, just as I have the cycle chart up here, guys, if we were to see some kind of crazy pullback, just understand we have a lot of room down here to go. And even if we were to, for some reason, get a drop down to $80,000, this is still a healthy pullback in my opinion. It's not until we start losing $75,000 where I really start worrying about $108,000 being the top. So with all that being said, guys, that's all the time I got for today's video. Hopefully these targets helped you guys out. I know we've talked about these price targets for the 2025 bull market before, but I wanted to put some actual data, some actual Fibonacci levels, some actual spider lines behind these to show you guys exactly why I'm looking at these levels. I'm not just bullish on Bitcoin to these levels because I think that is a price that we're going to. This is all based off the charts. And again, that doesn't even guarantee we hit them, but this is how I'm handling things. And hopefully we could send this thing to the moon in 2025. And then hopefully we could see those altcoins light up and scream to the upside. And I will be dropping a little bit of an altcoin update here coming up soon on the channel. So make sure you subscribe and smash that like button. And that's all the time I got for today's video. I'll see you in the next one. Frankie Candles out.
Here we go, at the top of the class on a roll, and it's time to run.